afternoon and good evening, everyone. I know we have people from different time zones in this session, and I'm happy to have you all with us. And welcome to this session under the title of Petroleum Economics and Agreements. Our presenter today will be Engineer Amr Hijazi. Engineer Amr is a reservoir engineer in GPC, and he's experienced many fields in reservoir engineering, including simulation, nodal analysis, PTA, and reservoir economics. And he's an instructor for reservoir economics courses. Engineer Amr has a bachelor's degree in petroleum engineering from Swiss University in Egypt, and also a diploma in contracting administration for project managers from AUC. But before we start, we have just a small presentation about our upcoming courses, which will be presented by my colleague, Jad Aql. So Jad, please share your screen and the stage is yours.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? So is my screen visible for all of you?
Yes, we can see it.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I am Jad Aql, OPA Project Coordinator, and I will be delivering a presentation about our November and December courses. So first, let me start by our previous courses. In the 5 months that were PipeSim, Sapphire, AMBAL, Oilfield Manager, Gap, and Prosper. I would like to show you screenshots about our PipeSim and AMBAL courses that were amazing. Our attendees gave a great feedback about our instructors and the courses that they delivered. In these 2 months, we are delivering 2 new courses that are Techlog and Petroleum Economics. The cost of each of these courses is $99, and both are for only $169. Each course will be for 6 days, including 1 day off to work on assignments. Each day will be for 3 hours. These courses are for petroleum engineers, geologists, economists, and will be delivered by highly experienced instructors. For technical software, you will learn about database setup, quality control, data and data loading, depth matching between different well data, coarse splicing between different log runs, lethality identifications from well logs, shale volume calculations, cutoffs and summation, construction of formation evaluation models, and finally, combining formation evaluation models. For our petroleum economics course, you will learn about the need of petroleum economics, common evaluation tools, economics analysis components, time value, economic indicators, and much more advanced topics. So how to apply? Now my colleague Assam will send a link on the chat. Please all make sure to see this chat, to see this link on the chat, and please all make sure to fill and register. So thank you so much, and now the mic will be with Omar again. Thank you.
Thank you, Jad. Just a few seconds to let people register through the link if they want to. And in the meantime, if anyone is using a name other than his full name, please change your name. And during the session, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the Q&A section, and Engineer Amr will answer all of your questions at the end of the session. And now I would like to welcome Engineer Amr. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Engineer Som. So I will share my screen now. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay.
But still, the PowerPoint is not open.
Okay. So good evening, everybody, and hope I will deliver what I want to you for this presentation. So I'm going to present petroleum economics and agreements. So our agenda today will include first oil industry.
Sorry, Engineer Amr, we can't see your PowerPoint.
You can see?
We can only see your the folder that contains all the videos and PowerPoints, but the PowerPoint itself is not open yet for us.
Okay, now you can see.
Yes, now we can see.
Okay. Okay, the agenda today will include the oil industry overview, and we will talk about petroleum economics. Third part, we'll talk about cash flow analysis, and then we go to reserve definition and classification. Then we will talk about exploration and petroleum agreement. And finally, we will come out with economic indicator and risk analysis. So what is economics all about? It's all about answering, is it fair price for investment? Today, oil price is about $30 to $35 per barrel. And the global upstream investment today is about $328 billion this year. So is it enough to know this two input only for economic model? There are a lot of factors that affect the economic model, which will be presented today. So let's start with our presentation. We will begin with the petroleum industry overview. So what is oil industry composed of? It's composed of three main sectors: upstream, midstream, downstream. Upstream, where E&P exploration and production companies invest their money to extract oil and drill wells. This is area where G&G and petroleum engineers are working. Midstream sector composed of transportation and storage companies, which transport product like oil and gas through trucking, pipeline shipping. And finally, downstream is composed of refineries, which deliver the final product, such as gasoline and jet fuel to the end consumer. So how we run our business in oil industry? We have players in oil industries. First, we have oil companies, which included the super major and the major, such as ExxonMobil, Shell, Total, Chevron, BP, and Eni and ConocoPhillips. These are huge companies which invest a lot of money to extract oil and gas. If we look at the chart on the right, we found that ExxonMobil revenue per year is around $400 billion, and the net income for the company is around $40 billion. This is a huge number for investment. Dependent, they are smaller companies like Apache China in China. Fourth type in oil companies are government-sponsored enterprises. These are private companies, but the majority of the stocks of the company are related to the government. This is like Petrobras in Brazil. Second type of players in oil industry are integrated service company, which provide services to oil company like Schlumberger, Halliburton, Baker. Then we have a specialized service company like drilling companies, which have drilling rigs. Another type of players in the oil industry are refineries, which produces the final product. And we have also petrochemical companies that uses raw material oil to manufacture plastics. Then we have a transportation and marketing companies. So all these players are running business in the oil industry. So to feel how business is running in oil industry, we will show some statistics about 2019 report from IEA. IEA is an organization called the International Energy Agency, which work with countries to collect data and provide them as a report to the public. So first slide, I will show about statistics about global investment in oil and gas upstream. We will see that from 2010 and 2019, the global investment is increasing until 2014 and reached from $500 billion to $809 billion at 2014, then decreased to around $500 billion in 2019. This should be reflected that oil price is increasing also from 2011, 2010 to 2014, and then decreasing to 2019. Second slide about statistics about the share of exploration of the total upstream investment. So if we look at 2010, we found that exploration has a 20% of the total investment, then decreasing with time. And this is the equivalent billion oil equivalent of gas and oil recovered from this investment. We found that we're talking about 50 billion equivalent discovered only in 2010, then 25 billion oil equivalent in 2011, and so on. So to take a deep look about investment, we divide the investment by measures and by NOCs. So allocation of oil and gas upstream investment by measures only, we see that the measures invest most of the capex in deep water drilling and in conventional onshore, while NOCs companies, national oil companies, invest more in onshore drilling, which is low risk. For that, NOCs invest more money in onshore drilling and low capex in deep water drilling. Also, investment in downstream. We found that the major player in this investment will be China, which consumes much oil to produce petrochemicals like plastics and fibers. So all the time we will find that China consume more oil to manufacture plastics and fibers. So the first part we talk about investment, then we will talk about now global oil production and reserve. This graph we show oil production and consumption, and the reserve consumption and production are in the left axis, y-axis, while the reserve is on the right hand axis. We will see that oil production all the time is increasing from 1960 till now, and till now we reached 100 million barrel per day production and almost the same consumption. And we reached now by 2019 around 1700 billion barrel as a reserve. And as we see, oil production and consumption is always increasing whatever oil price is. The same for gas. We have a gas and consumption on the left hand y-axis, and the reserve on right hand axis. And as we see again, that oil and that gas production and consumption is increasing always with time, and the reserve is always increasing with time. We reach now around 400 BCF per day production and consumption, and we almost have a reserve about 7,000 trillion cubic feet as a reserve. This is from BB statistical review in 1219. And as time progresses, we have always increasing a reserve. So this is a proved oil reserve around the world. In 1999, we talk about total reserve about 700,000 million barrel. As the majority of the reserve is in Middle East area. Then we talk about North America area, which is 18%. And then we talk about CIS, which is former Union, Soviet Union, is almost 10% of the total reserve. Then we increasing the reserve at 2009. We talk about 100,000 million barrel. And again, Middle East has the majority of the reserve. And finally, in 2019, we talk about 1,733,000 million barrel, and again, Middle East has the majority of the proved reserve. So this is slide on how oil will sustain as we produce. This is the global reserve to production ratio. This curve show the remaining reserve, how many years is that we will take to produce it in by region. So North America, if we look at RB ratio, we will find that it's around 30. That means that it takes North America to produce the reserve found now 30 years to produce it all. we will find that South and Central America will take 144 years to produce the reserve, because it's a new on oil industry. And in Middle East, we talk about 70 years to produce our reserve. And in general, the world, the RB ratio will be 50 years to consume all the reserve found now. So why we increase the reserve every time and every year? Because the primary energy water consumption is increasing. If we look at the left curve, we will see that this is the primary energy consumption. The green is oil and the red is natural gas, and the gray will be coal. And as we see that the oil consumption is increasing with time. And on the right hand side, we see the share of each primary energy from the total. As we see that the oil industry, the oil share is decreasing to around 35, but in general, the oil consumption is increasing, but the share is only decreasing with time, because another energy are being used now. Second reason for increasing energy consumption is that the consumption per individual in the world is increasing. As we see by this curve, the North America individual uses around 250 gigajoule, which is a unit for energy consumption. And in the world, as the average, we talk about 70 gigajoule per individual. So that is the reason why we always increasing oil production and we finding more reserve. So when we look at oil prices from 1970 to till now, we will find that the oil price increasing from at 1973. Then we have a decline. Then we have an increasing at 98 or 97, and another peak at 1214. Then we have a decreasing in oil price. So we have 3 peaks here. These 3 peaks corresponding events like Arab and Israel war. Second peak corresponding to the invasion of Iraq. The third peak corresponding to Arab Spring. Finally, we reach now almost around 40 or 35 barrel per day today. This is the darker green curve. If we look at the light green is what is called real value, which is you take a reference at 2019, and you see the time value, the equivalent value for the money in that year. If you look at 1973, if the barrel is cost the price is about $35, that means that you will pay $110 to buy that barrel at 2019. So this is called the real curve, and this is called the money of the day or nominal. So what happened in 2012 after pandemic? This curve shows that the oil companies always have a plan B or a contingent plan to compensate what happened in globally. So after the oil price is decreasing, we will see that oil companies reduces their initial investment by almost 25%. If we see measures like ExxonMobil, Shell, Chevron, Total, BP, Eni, ConocoPhillips, they all are decreasing their initial investment and put another budget for the investment. This is always happen when we have a decreasing in oil price. So this is the first part about overview in oil industry. The second part we'll talk about petroleum economics. So why we perform economics in oil and gas project? First, to justify exploration project and development well, to take a loan or to take acquisition. Second reason, to value a property for sale or exchange. Third reason to make acquisition or obtain loan, you should prepare a budget or economic study to introduce it to the banks to get a loan. Fourth reason, management uses economic evaluation to make a budget for the company and to report to the government its cash in and cash out, and the valuation of assets and the leading and the lease bidding, and workover justification and equipment purchase and investor reporting. So every workover or any invest you make, you should prepare an economic model to introduce it to the management. This is why we perform economics. So if we look at the life cycle for any exploration and production project, we will find that we have three phases. First phase is exploration, second phase is appraisal, and third phase is development. And each phase composed of some items. First phase in exploration, the company or the investor is negotiated with the government to get a permit to explore in the area of the government. The time to get this permit is 1 year. Then you have an award of exploration and production, and you pay something called signature bonus. This may take 6 months, and you may pay signature bonus from few millions to 1,000 million. Then the exploration start, and it takes from few months to 1 year, and you may pay a few millions to start your exploration phase. When you start your exploration phase, you make two items: the seismic exploration and exploration drilling. This take from 1 to 3 years, and you may cost from $1 million to $50 million. And then you go into a second phase, which is called appraisal. In appraisal, you delineate your reservoir and you make the area that you will put your wells there. The appraisal of the discovery takes only 1 year or 2 years, and you may pay $100 million. Then you prepare your feasibility study and the engineering study, and make tenders to have service companies to work together. This may take maybe 2 years, and you pay maybe from $2 to $50 million. Then you have an approval from the government to develop your field. This may take 6 months, and again, you may pay $1 as a signature bonus. The third phase is development. In this phase, you finish your tenders and you have contract now. This may take 6 months, and you may pay $1 million. And then you install your facilities and drill development well. This may take 5 years, and you may pay from 100 to $1,000 million. And the last phase, the last item in the development phase, that you bring your wells into production. This may take 6 months and may cost $10 million. So when we look at trends in exploration and production, we find that we have unique trends. What is unique about trends that in exploration phase, you always pay some money, so you have a negative cash flow. The green line is the cash flow. So always you pay money, so you have negative cash flow. Then you go into appraisal phase, and again you have negative cash flow because always you pay. Then when you develop and install your facilities, you have a production, then you have a revenue. That's why the cash flow concave up until it reaches zero. That you restore all your investment that you paid. Then you have an increasing in production, and again you increase the cash flow into positive side. And the production with time is decreasing, and again is the profit is decreasing with time, until you have a decision that you redevelopment your field, or you use enhanced oil recovery, so you have a more production and have more oil and more cash flow. Then it comes into end, you have an abandoned phase, and you pay some money for the abandonment. This is a unique trend in oil and gas industry. So in each phase in life cycle of the E&B project, you have to take a decision from identifying basin for exploration team and convert this basin to a prospect. After that, you want to drill exploration well after you define a prospect. This is a decision. After that exploration well, you put your development plan and you put a feasibility study for development cost. This is a decision to develop your field. Finally, you have a decision to abandon your field. So in each stage, you should take a decision. This decision costs a lot of money, so you should take it carefully and with economic evaluation. So upstream projects are characterized by a large initial capital cost, as we see in the previous slide, and the high rate of capital investment throughout the asset life. Always you spend money in every stage. Third characterization is long payback period. You may take from 4 to 7 years to restore all your investment you make. You have a high risk and uncertainty in on oil and gas projects. You have a complexity because you have to integrate all the teams together. You have a multiple stage with differable decision point. Yeah, you should take a route from yes or no. Finally, you depend on a volatile product price, as we see in statistics, that oil price has no constant price, always increasing and decreasing. So you depend on that. So oil companies must be a large portfolio that have a large money for investment at any time, but they have three constraints. First one is finite technical resources and skills to evaluate and manage each project. Second constraint that we have a commitment to finish in a finite time. Third constraint that we have finite financial resource and frequent budget constraint, because you always get your money from a lender or individual, like selling some shares. So a conclusion of oil industry of last 30 years that we have a volatility. What we mean by volatility is that we have a recession and a boom. In the recession, we have oil and gas demand because oil prices is low, so the demand will increase. This demand increase by because prices is low. Then we have the demand is increasing, affecting on the oil and the gas again prices. So oil and gas prices increasing, so the shares of the assets increasing. Then we have availability of finance. Then the drilling is increasing. Then the cost is itself increasing, and oil stocks is increasing. When increasing, so the demand again is decreasing, and E&B share prices is decreasing again. So we have a lot of cycles. So for how long these cycles repeated, as we see from the statistics, that it takes years to be repeated, depending on global politics and geopolitics that happened. So how to put these uncertainties in our economic model? So we have what we call the boundary scenario. This boundary scenario is reflecting the worst case for prediction and the best case for prediction. This is made by sensitivity analysis and risk analysis, and we'll talk about them at the end of the presentation. So you put all uncertain parameters such as oil and gas prices, production and decline rates, cost inflation, fiscal term, which is mean split between the government and the investor. You put all these uncertain parameters into sensitivity analysis, excuse me, and produces two boundary scenario, one reflecting the worst case and one reflecting the best case for investment. So the cost of delay in early phases of the field cycle, delays in exploration and appraisal always have negative impact on a project and the company, because if you see at the left graph, we see that the field is running at the committed time, and you see that you store your investment at about 40 years, and you almost spend $100 million. And if you see as you delayed in any phase in exploration and appraisal or development, you will see that you pay back your money at 6+ years, and you expose your company to more negative. It reaches here at 250. So any delay in early phases of field cycle is not recommended, because you pay back your money at a later time, and you expose the company to more negative, and this may be expose the company to bankruptcy, and this is not good for investment. Another way to extend the field life is by reducing what is called operating cost and overheads. Operating cost usually is the cost you pay every day as the project is running, and the overheads is what we pay for salaries is called overhead. So by extending, if you want to extend your life, the life cycle of the field, you should decrease your operating cost. If we look at the left graph, we'll see that the net income is decreasing with time until it reaches to the what we call economic limit, when the net income is equal to the operating expenses. So if you want to increase the life cycle, you should decrease your operating cost. If you decrease your operating cost, you put a new economic limit, and you may extend your field life cycle. So again, this is not one-side process to take a decision. It's a multiple team integration to put an economic analysis in the right way. This is by integration, by technical and assessment and feasibility, and by taking risk and opportunity analysis. Then you see market condition and the distance to market, which affect also the costs of delivering oil to the market. Then you have to sit with the government for initial negotiation to have a contract between between investor and the government. So what is called the fiscal design is just a contract between the government and the investor. They put together all the risks. Government put their risk, and investor put their risk in this contract. And depend on the risk allocation between the government and the investor, you split oil between the government and investor, and with time, this called obsolescence bargaining, that the multinational enterprise of the investor decrease their split with time, and the split favors to the government. This is called obsolescence bargaining. So to balance between the risk and reward, it is not easy. So you should make a risk analysis and economic model to take a proper decision for investment in oil and gas industry. The third section we'll talk about today is cash flow analysis. So what is the cash flow analysis? Cash flow is what you spend minus what you get. So it's normally in the form of sales of revenues due to your sales of oil and gas, and expenditure minus expenditure due to capital cost or operating cost. So this is a typical flow chart for any cash flow to any company. So this is the cash of the investor that brings from two sides, from shareholders by selling some shares in the company, or by lenders like banks. So you have a loan from a bank. This cash is you spend it in production management and on production operation and in exploration phase. So you have four ways of cash out. You spend money on production management and production, and to buy some capital asset, and to make drill size exploration well and short seismic. This is the expenses of the project. So after production, you put the oil in production, so you have oil. So you make sales. This is the income of the project. The income, the government should take taxes from the income. So this is called taxable income, from which is taxes is taken. Then the rest of the income is called cash into the company, which is again you have to pay loan interest to the lender or retained earning to equity shareholder. So this is a typical flow chart of any cash flow to the company. So if we have a projection of cash flow, we have three items here in the cash flow. Cash items, which is money paid and received. Non-cash items such as depreciation, depletion, and the book values used mainly for tax and accounting calculation. And we will see it later what is called by depreciation and depletion. And the third item is royalty, which is paid to the state that own the resources, oil and gas. You paid it in money or a product, and it's technically a cash or non-cash item. So cash items like what? Like working interest revenues and the income from the sales, local taxes, OPEX, overheads, which is salaries, loan interest, which is paid to the lender, CapEx, capital cost, land or lease fees and bonus, corporation taxes, which is paid to the government, special petroleum taxes like UK, United Kingdom license. This is special taxes in UK. And finally, debt, capital, and interest repayment to the lender. This is cash items. So cash flow inflow and outflow. Inflow of cash flow is revenue. What is revenue is production multiplied by 1 minus royalty, because royalty is always taken at first to the government. So the revenue is production multiplied by 1 minus royalty multiplied by production price. If you have some pipelines and you rent it for a third party, this is also cash in for you, what's called tariff revenues paid by third parties for service or access to infrastructure of your company. This is a revenue. You should minus any expenditure you pay to get a profit, net profit for the company. So we left expenditure like transportation, operating costs, G&G costs, overheads, capital expenditure, minus any payment to the government like license fees, bonus, local taxes, fixed exchange due to exchange rate, VAT, like value-added taxes, special petroleum taxes like UK, corporate taxes, withholding taxes, and royalty. All this expenditure you should minus from the revenue to get a net profit for the company. This is the cash flow. So if we look at the upstream cash flow component influence diagram, we'll find that subsurface reservoir is the main influence at your development design. If you have a limited reservoir, you should put a small development plan. And if you have a huge reservoir, you should have a huge development design. This subsurface reservoir should influence on production and the decline rate. This also influence at product sales price, how much you produce, and also influence at your operating cost. This decision must take after you know how much oil you will have in underground, and you put the development designs. So it is a decision which influence your capex and influence your opex. All these uncertainties in darker green, subsurface reservoir production, sales price, opex, and the capex. All these are an uncertain parameter in your model. Then you have a calculation like cost, which is the summation of opex and capex. and revenues, which is how much oil you produce multiplied by sales price. This is influence your cash flow, costs, and revenues, which is also influence net present value after you applying discount rate. Then you have another factor affect your cash flow, which is called the fiscal contact terms, in which we split oil between the investor and the government, and how much government is taking as a taxes from the investor. This also influence your net present value at the end stage. So we have a reserve, and the reservoir characteristic have a huge influence on cash flow, but it's not appeared in the economic model. So we should know about reserve. So we will go through about the reserve definition and the classification. So what is a reserve? A reserve is estimated volume of crude oil and condensate or natural gas liquids and associated, anticipated to be commercially recoverable from known accumulation from a given date under existing economic condition by established operating practice and under current government regulation. So you should have volumes and conditions to be a reserve. It should be commercially recoverable, and you can extract them by established operating practice. So reserve estimates are dependent on our interpretation of geologic and engineering data available at the time of estimate. So if you look at the resource or the total oil in place, you will find that we have an iceberg of resources, which is divided into technically recoverable resource. Then not all technically recoverable resource is economic, so we have economic recoverable resource, and not all economics is we can extract them with high certainty. So again, we divide them into proved and probable reserves. And finally, at the tip of the iceberg, we have proved, developed, and producing reserve. This is why we should know about reserve, because most economic model should take into account proven only reserve. So the boundaries between proved, developed, producing reserve and proved reserve and economic reserve is influenced by oil and gas prices and costs to extract them from underground. And any boundary from these lines is influenced by new technology. If you have a new technology, you can reduce your oil unrecoverable resource, and you increase your technical recoverable resource. If oil and gas increases, so you can increase your economic recoverable resource. So all these boundaries dependent on oil and gas and technology. So again, if we look at resources, we classify them into unconventional or non-conventional and conventional. Non-conventional resources include oil shales and gas hydrates. At 2007, oil shales and gas hydrates not yet commercially, but now U.S. extract oil and shale, which means that commercial to be extracted. And we have also tar sand, coal bed methane, shale gas, bitumen, ultra heavy oil, which have API less than 10, and tar gas sand. All this is non-conventional, which is hard to produce and have a high cost to be extracted. Conventional resources included heavy crude oil and natural gas, and NGL and light oil, which have API greater than 22, and they easy to be produced, and the cost to extract them is low. So how petroleum reserve classification, we classify reserve into three categories: proved reserve, and probable and possible. We classify them depend on how confident we are going to extract this reserve. So if you are confident by 90%, this is called proved. If you confident by 50%, this is called the probable reserve. If you confident by 10%, this is called the possible reserve. And we have 1P reserve, which include only proved reserve, 2P reserve, which include proved and probable. That is the best estimate to calculate reserve. And the third B is include proved and probable and possible, and this we call less likely to be produced. If we look at the right chart, we find that the phase begin with prospective resource. With time, we develop a chance of discovery from play to lead to prospect. If we find a prospect, then we go to exploration phase and begin to drill wells, exploration wells, and shoot seismic. If it is commercial, it's discovered. We call it discovered petroleum. We classify this initially in place in sub-commercial and commercial. Sub-commercial we called contingent resources, and commercial is called reserve. So we have three initially oil in place, reserve and contingent resources, and prospective. The one that we are interested in is called the reserve, and we classify reserve into proved and possible depend on the level of confidence to extract such oil. So how we classify our reserve, how to determine our reserve? We have two ways to classify reserve. The first one is called deterministic, which you have one value for each scenario. For proved, you have one scenario. If for probable, you have one value. For possible, you have one value for possible reserve. The second way is called the probabilistic approach. This is made by Monte Carlo simulation. You put your input and your output will be a range of probabilities. We have a P90 is called proved reserve, and at P50 you have 2B proved plus probable, and at P10 probability is called 3B, which include proved and probable and possible. So in each phase in our life cycle, we begin to estimate reserve, and we begin to revise our reserve estimate. So in the initial phase, defining prospect, we made a guess about our reserve. Then when we explore and appraise, we put another value for the reserve. Then when production come and you apply secondary recovery or tertiary, you add more reserve. Then your book reserve will be increased until you reach abandonment phase. So in every stage, you revise your reserve. And it is important process to be made. So how we made an estimate of reserve and production volume? We have three ways: performance, which include the decline curve analysis and material balance. This is made by reservoir engineers. The second way is called volumetric. This is made by geology, in which you will have original oil in place, and the reservoir engineer apply cover factor based on the drive mechanism of the reservoir. The third method of estimating reserve is called analogy or statistical. This is if you have no data about the field, you take an offset field and you make analog reserve estimation. So this section will talk about the exploration and production agreement, in which we will see how the physical design is made. So what is the physical regime? Simply, it's a contract between two parts. The first part will be the government, and the second part will be the investor. It's included all terms like legal terms and political terms, taxation and contractual, and any other element associated with sharing oil and gas revenues. Fiscal regime included bonus like signature bonus to the government, rentals, royalties. This is the first part we took from oil to the government. Production sharing percentage between the government and the investor, and the carried interest provision. This is if you have cost to recover pool and you have carried interest, you should put all this in the contract. and taxes and special taxes should be included in the fiscal regime. So we have two common contracts in oil industry. The first one is called the production sharing, and the second one is called the concession. The first one is the government own the hydrocarbon. The ownership of the government don't transfer to the investor. Second point is the companies can have what is called cost recovery to recover the costs incurred from production revenues. The third point is oil companies negotiate to share revenue from the production, which is called the profit split. And finally, companies pay corporate tax on profit share. This is get by the government. Concession contract, individual or company buys the right to extract and sell mineral. This ownership is transferred here into the individual or company. Then the company receive all the sales revenue in the first instance, but it pay for the government royalty again. Then the company is paying taxes also for the government. Royalty is non-profit sensitive basis. It's paid whatever the company is making profit or no. And then we have some specific petroleum taxes like UK Petroleum Revenue Tax. And finally, we pay taxes based on profit sensitive basis. So one indicator is important for this contract, what is called the government take, which is a measure of how a local state captures the net profit from oil and gas production. The world average government take is about 64%. Ireland has the lowest one, is at 25%, and Yemen has the highest one in BDO at 95%. The average government take are between 40 and 65%. For oil companies, the indicator that important for oil companies is called net present value and the internal rate of return (IRR) of their shared cash flow. So here we show comparative analysis among fiscal regime. So we have 4 contracts. The first 2 are the common, and we have what is called joint venture and pure contract service. So in concession or what we call the taxes and royalty contract, the contract assume all the risk. The government has no risk to bear and take part in all the works in revenues. Host government only take taxes and royalty from this contract. In the second contract, in production share contract, contractor assume exploratory risk, and we have, as we see, what is called cost recovery and oil split. Host government has no risk in exploration, so they have oil split and taxation from the contractor. In joint venture contract, contractor and the host government share risk in exploration and production, and they have a split in all revenues. In pure contract service, contractor has no risk to take because it only take payment, and government in this contract have all risk from exploration, production, and also revenues from production and price. So in economics, the greater the risk, the greater the return, and as we see that concession contract is where companies assume most of the risk, is that we expect that it is most attractive option to increase return over the capital. So if we have a look between the 2 contract, royalty tax and production share, first we have gross production, royalty and tax. As we said before, that we pay royalty at first instance. Then we have production after we pay royalty to the government. Then we have to deduct the costs that the contractor is paying. Then we have a net revenue from which investor pay tax to the government. And after subtract investor tax, you have a net profit for the investor. If we look at production share contract, again, after post production, the government take royalty at the first instance, and again we have what we call the cost recovery, where contractor recover costs, but with a limit. Then we have what we call the profit oil. The profit oil, again, we have a split between the host government and the contractor. And the contractor profit pay for the government tax. If we take an example of our concession contract with numbers, if 1 barrel of oil costs its price $20, then we have a 20% royalty, which is mean $4 to the government. So now we have 20 minus $4, which is $16, and we pay then the deduction of costs. So the contractor paying $9 as a cost and cover them again. So this $9 for the contractor. So we have now $7. We take government take 10% as a provisional tax, which mean $0.7 to the government. And the remaining will be $6.3. Again, we have what is called federal income tax, which is 40% from 6.3. This will be $2.52 to the government, and the rest will be $3.78 to the contractor. So if we sum 9 and 3.78, we'll get 12.78, which is 64% of the net profit for the government and the contractor, and the government will take $7.22, which is 36% for the government. If we look at production sharing contract as numbers, if we have 1 barrel price $20, again we have a royalty 10%, which is $2 to the government. So we have a remaining now $18. We have a cost recovery pool, which is a 40% limit. So the contractor will take only 40% from $18, which is $8. And the remaining now will be 18 minus 8 will be $10. We have now to split between the government and the contractor. The split is 60% for the government and 40% for contractor. So contractor will take $4 and the government will take $6. And again, the contractor will pay taxes to the government, which is 40% of $4, which is 1.6 to the government. So the government will take 2 plus 6 plus 1.6, which is 9.6, which is 48% from the total profit. And the contractor will now will receive 8 plus 4 minus 1.6, which is 10.4, which is 52% of the total profit. So if we look at the percentage here, we will find that the contractor will take much more percentage because he assumes much more risk in concession than production share. So what is the main elements in petroleum company? In petroleum upstream contract, this is the main. You should define the area of the contract, the duration, relinquishment. If you don't accomplish your commitment, you should relinquish to the government the area. The work program should be submitted to the government. Bonuses, royalties, cost recovery limit, which is 40% in most contract. And the profit oil split, which is 60-40 in most contracts. Taxation, depreciation method, market obligation, government participation, which is government take, and some legal items which is included in contract. So the government objective in the contract will be maximize value of petroleum resource to gain as much as possible from the resource they own, and the company objective is to maximize stockholder interest. So as a company, should have some economic indicator to rank a project and to know if your project are on their path or no. So we have to present economic indicator. We have what we call undiscounted indicator. What we mean by undiscounted indicator is that we don't take into consideration time value. You just deal with the numbers as it is, as a nominal values. So we have 4 undiscounted indicator. First one is maximum capital outlay, which is the maximum negative in cash flow curve. And we have second parameter is called the payback period, which is the point where the curve intersect again with the x-axis. Third parameter, what is called terminal cash surplus, which is we'll define it, which is the last positive value in the cash flow curve. And fourth parameter, what we call the profit to investment ratio. Simply, it is the maximum outlay divided by terminal cash surplus. And the last one is cost to find or develop reserve. So let's talk about each one. So the maximum capital outlay, this is the minimum value on the cumulative net cash flow curve. This is the maximum negative you can reach as a company. And this represents the worst financial position over the life of the project, which is what we call the exposure. That the company has to be exposed itself at the worst case. And is a useful measure of financial commitment to the project, which needs to be funded from outside the project. So if you don't have this money, you should the financial management should have find a way to fund this project from outside. The second parameter, as we say, the payback period. This is where net cash flow returns to zero. But payback analysis, it's give you nothing about the future. You can again go to negative, or you can increase in this way or this way. So it is only to know how when you pay back your time only. So it is not a ranking parameter. The third parameter is called what is called the terminal cash surplus, and again it is the last positive cash flow, not the highest. Profit to investment ratio, it is maximum outlay divided by terminal cash surplus, and it is a measure of investment efficiency. So simply, it is how much you gain if you spend $1. The last undiscounted parameter, what is called the cost to find or develop reserve. Finding cost, simply it's exploration cost divided by reserve, which is usually proven, and development cost, consider development cost, which is capex, included in drilling well and facilities to develop reserve, divided by reserves. This is the most undiscounted indicator to evaluate the project, final cost and development cost. So to talk about discounted parameter, we should know what is the time value of money. So if you want to convert future value of money to a present to today environment, you should what is called the future value multiplied by discount rate, which is 1 divided by 1 plus interest rate power to n. So this is the formula that convert future value to present value and present value to future value. So the discounted parameter are 3 discounted parameter we talk about: net present value index, and internal rate of return. So what is net present value? It is the sum of all project cash flow discounted back from future value to present value by discount rate to today environment. So as we see now, the net present value is A naught divided by 1 plus I power 2 O. This is the first year. Then the second year, every year you discount the cash flow by using its discount rate to now. So net present value is the first discounted parameter that is should be taken into consideration when you make economic model. So relation between net present value and discount rate, simply if you increasing your discount rate, you will decreasing your net present value until you reach 0 net present value. Second indicator is called the rate of return or internal rate of return. That is the discount rate which make your net present value 0. This is on the curve should be here. So to have a successful project, you should have this value greater than what we call the cost of capital or hurdle rate. So if you have a cost of capital 10%, you should have an IRR greater than 10% to have a successful project. Third indicator, what is called the net present value index. It's like profit investment ratio, but with the discounted values for MCO and terminal cash surplus. And again, it's a measure of investment efficiency, how much you gain if you spend $1, but with discount factor. We have one more discounted indicator, what we call discounted return on investment. This indicator is special to estimate something like we have similar project with capital outlay with the maximum negative, but we want to know which project is gaining more. So we depend on overheads on capital. So if you have an overhead salaries in one project is greater than one project, but you have the same capital, so it's again you affect the net present value of the project. So this indicator is special if you have a similar project with the same capital cost. And there are more three indicator which depend on which investment you take. If you take maximum negative cumulative cash flow, this is called the discounted return on investment. If you have total investment which include capex and opex, this is called discounted profit to investment ratio. If you have capex only, we have what is called the profitability index. So again, they are all the same, but they look at special expenses. So now we move on the last part for this presentation, risk analysis. So what is the risk in our project? We have technological risk, which is risk of drilling a problem or not achieving our target or not achieving a flow rate expected of producing well. Second risk, we have oil and gas price risk, as we see from the statistics that we have. We don't have a constant oil price. Third risk we call the project overrun risk, which is you don't, as we see before, if you have a delay in any phase in development or appraisal or exploration, this increase your exposure as a company, which is a risk for the company to go to bankruptcy. And the fourth risk is political risk. This is happen when you have a severe war or what happened in Arab Spring. This is also a risk. And finally, we have a fiscal risk. That risk is a governmental risk when they introduce a new tax like VAT in Egypt. So all these risks should be taken into consideration when you make an economic model. So risk analysis is basically an estimate of you estimate the probability of occurrence of an event to see how impact of this event on the project. So how we out probabilities. If you have two events depending on each other, you just add the probabilities like rolling one with single die. The probability is 1/6. If you have to roll 1/5 with one roll, then they are depending on each other. So you add them. 1/6 plus 1/6 will give you 1/3. If you multiply, if you have an events that don't depend on each other, you have a multiplication rule, and this is applied in the geologic exploration. So in exploration, you have technical risk factors like reservoir or trap or source. If you have reservoir, probability to find a good reservoir is 0.56, and if you have a trap 0.42, and the source of probability is 0.9, you should multiply them all together to get the acceleration risk, which is 0.21, because all these parameters are independent. So to have a successful project, you should have a good physical terms. Depth to the var should be not deep. The var performance. This economic will depend on all these parameters. So how we estimate risk? We have four ways to estimate risk. First one is sensitivity analysis, and we show them by spider diagram or tornado diagram. Second method is called the expected value analysis. Third method is called Monte Carlo simulation, and finally we have what we call decision trees. So what is meant by sensitivity analysis is you have a lot of input. You should vary each input and see its impact when you change it on in net present value or internal rate of return. So you change oil price and you see what happened in net present value. You change reserve and you see what happened in oil in net present value. So for in general, for large project, we have the effect mainly due to what we call the revenue drivers like reserve and oil price and initial well flow rate. You will find on tornado diagrams that we will have a big range. If you change this parameter by 10% or 20%, you will find that you have a huge range of this parameter. This is a spider tornado diagram, and company should be focused on these items in economic model. If you have a small range, this input is not as important as these items. This is an example of a tornado diagram. Show oil price, production volume, and capex, opex, inflation, and production time. And as we see in this project, the capex has the major effect on the sensitivity analysis on net present value. Another way in sensitivity analysis, we show that by what we call spider chart. So we change input and see its impact. Again, it's on net present value, and the standard for this change is 50%, 75, 125, and 150%. Curves that show steep slopes, so whether positive or negative, indicates that this variable have a large effect, which need the company focus in the economic study, while the curves that has gentle slope or horizontal show a little or no effect on the forecast, and the company should neglect them. The slopes of line also, whether positive or negative change, they are important to take into consideration. This is an example of a spider chart, and as we see, this capex and opex for the orange one, and the quantity, which is the oil production volume, is in purple. So as we see that the oil production has the steepest one, and then capex, then opex. So you should take into consideration oil production into your economic model. Another way to display your risk analysis is what's called decision tree. This is mainly used by G&G people to know how to evaluate the prospect and how probability to get a dry oil. So this is all about economic petroleum and economics and agreement. And thank you for.
Thank you, Engineer Hammer, for this interesting presentation. We have some questions, but we exceeded our time, so I need quick answers from you, please.
Okay.
The first one is, what's the major cause of fluctuation in the oil prices?
The major cause of oil and gas price fluctuation is the process of demand and supply. So if supply is greater than the demand, so then the price will decrease and vice versa. And another reason is politics. As we mentioned, if in 1973, when war between Arab and Israel happened, the oil price is increasing dramatically because what we call the Arab embargo, because the supply is decreasing. So again, the oil price is increasing.
Okay. Second, the question is, should we depreciate the capital expenditure on annual basis?
Capital expenditure, depreciation happened only as we agreed between investor and the government. Usually it take 5 years depreciation. So if you invest $1 million, you should depreciate it on 5 years and subtract them from revenues to get what we call the taxable income.
Okay, among NPV, IRR, and EMV values, which one should be considered more credible?
We in economic evaluation, we don't depend only on one parameter. We use at least 4 parameters to rank a project or to see if the project is successful or not. So again, we depend on the present value, and we depend on internal rate of return, and profit to investment ratio, and last one is undiscounted cost to find or develop reserve.
Okay, what's the difference between P90, P50, P10, and 1P, 2P, and 3P?
P90 is the proved only, is the proved reserve only. P50 is the probable only. P10 is possible only. 1B is the summation of proved and is proved. 2B is the summation of proved and probable. And 3B is the summation of proved and probable and possible. This is the difference between them.
Okay, is there a mathematical model to ascertain the classification of a reserve?
There is no mathematical model. It's we have a deterministic approach, which is you take a single value for each input, like porosity and saturation, and you have an output as a single value, like original oil in place. This is the deterministic approach. In a probabilistic approach, we use a wide range of input. We have a range for porosity, for SW, and we calculate our original air in place. Then we have a range also for recovery factor, and then we have a wide range for reserve. So you have 2 ways to determine your reserve.
Okay, what's the loyalty fees?
The royalty fees is it's a government right for ownership of for resources. So as an investor, you should pay this royalty as a first to the government because it's own these resources.
When estimating the price of oil in your project, what's the minimum price you should use despite the change in price?
As we talk about, we make what we call sensitivity analysis. You should take the current price, let's say $50 per barrel. You take 25% and 50% greater and lower than this price for your economic model.
Okay, last two questions. Why the government doesn't invest in the oil and gas industry instead of the investor? However, there are experts who have high quality and can guarantee the production.
Again, as we see that the investment in last statistics globally reach about $800 billion. And this number is not an easy for a government to invest. So this number is usually is over than the budget of a mid-sized country. So it is not easy for the government to collect this money for investment.
Okay, last question is, what's the economic limit of oil and gas in your own perspective?
The economic limit of oil and gas is as we see in second section, is the operating cost of the project. So if you reach this operating cost, you should shut down your project because you will lose after that.